Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to NEWSROOM. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is the 20th of January 2022. It's a Thursday. Come to our second story, ladies and gentlemen. And our second story pertains to Russia, the latest situation as far as Russia is concerned, whether it be Ukraine, whether it be the tensions between the West and Russia. What is going to happen? More in the following report.
As the world remains divided on whether Moscow is planning an imminent incursion in Ukraine or merely posturing to win geopolitical sway, Europe is seemingly inching closer towards war. Stark warnings issued by diplomats regarding Russia-NATO standoff indicate the scale of record-high tensions in Europe as the region is navigating its worst security crisis in decades. Despite the massive build-up of troops on the border with Ukraine, Moscow denies that it's planning a military invasion. In order to avert critical geopolitical crisis, three high-stake meetings were held in European cities after last month's talks between US President Joe Biden and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. Russian demands for NATO to retreat from Eastern Europe and end any Eastern expansion, ruling out Ukraine joining the alliance, have been rejected by Transatlantic Military Alliance. Tensions soared as a high-stake meeting between Russia and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization over Ukraine has ended without a breakthrough. The silver lining is that the US and Russian foreign ministers will hold talks in Geneva this week, signaling that diplomacy is not dead. Moreover, NATO has invited Russia to a fresh series of talks to discuss European security and arms controls as the world's most powerful military alliance scrambles to avoid a possible Russian attack on Ukraine. The Russia-NATO standoff has reached a critical juncture and push for diplomacy, enduring commitment to de-escalation is crucial to avert war.
Now, to discuss this very important issue that is engulfing this region, we've been joined by Khalid Taimur Akram Saab. He's the Executive Director of CGSS. Khalid Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. Khalid Saab, when it comes to Russia and Ukraine, we already know the history as far as Crimea is concerned. But now, is there any truth in your point of view as far as all this accumulation of the troops on the border leading to some kind of an incursion into Ukraine?
Yes, first of all, we have to see that what has been happening in Ukraine since last couple of years. Russia basically wants US to be out of the post-Soviet Union states, and they are compelling US through various means that US should not make Ukraine as part of the greater NATO, and the NATO should not expand towards the Eastern European side, and especially to the former Soviet Union states, because Russia has got a lot of stakes in these countries. So for that, Russia is definitely putting their pressure through keeping forces on the border of Ukraine. We have seen in last couple of years that Russia has annexed a part of Ukraine, and now there are problems going on in almost two regions in Ukraine, and the rebels are fighting against the Ukrainian forces, and Ukraine is in pretty much a problem. On the other hand, if we see the Americans, all of a sudden they have developed like love for Ukraine. And
is it more of a political inclination as far as this love for Ukraine is concerned?
Yes, it is political inclination, because America is feeling quite left out of this place. We see that all these countries, they are together in various platforms in which America is not part. For example, CIS, then we have another which is known as CSTO, the Comprehensive Security Treaty Organization. Then SCO has come up as a very potent organization. Pakistan is also a member of Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So practically America and European Union, they feel quite left out of this place. And recently we have seen problems in Kazakhstan, and which has turned out to be that there are foreign forces involved in that, and particularly a few American websites instigated the people over there. So Americans, they have their particular interest, but the Soviet Union, the ex-Soviet Union states, they are pretty much together, and they follow the Russian governance system.
Well, now you talk of the former Soviet states. Now, are they not also being swayed by the United States of America so as to counterbalance the pressure that Russia has been mounting as far as creating its own hegemony in the region is concerned?
Yes, we should not say this thing that Russia is creating hegemony over here. Russia already has this hegemony. Russia already has this edge. All these countries are basically Russian-speaking countries,
of course.
And they are under influence of Russia, since even if they are independent. But in case of Ukraine, America has a particular interest. Now, one, that they want Ukraine to be part of a greater NATO alliance, and the NATO expansion is under process. And if we see the new NATO order, which the Americans and the NATO is calling, so NATO has included, NATO is now not only a military alliance, but they have made a political setup within NATO, and so NATO is now in more of a dispute resolution, and it has it is now above the previous NATO, which was primarily made to counter the Cold War era. But now NATO is expanding. NATO wants to expand to this part of the world. NATO wants to have more troops on ground over here in this region, but Soviet Union does not want that.
All right. Now, let's come to the European angle in all of this as well. There is the supply of arms that we have heard of to Ukraine. Then there is that inclination towards Ukraine by the European side as well. Do you feel that the European Union or Europe is joining the US as far as this battle between Russia and the West over Ukraine, or maybe over this region, is concerned?
Yes, certainly Ukraine wants a better future for their citizens. They want a better financial package, and they know that this better financial package can only be given to them if they join European Union or if they become part of NATO. So we already know that the smaller countries inside European Union, like Latvia and other countries, they enjoy a lot of leverage within the European Union. People can travel without any passport or anything, so a lot of job creation is there. So obviously the present Ukrainian government, they have a tilt towards European Union, and they don't see any charm now while staying with Russia. On the other hand, Russia sees Ukraine as their backyard, and if they see NATO forces coming in Ukraine in times to come, so they feel very threatened, because Russia and Ukraine, they have a common border, and Ukraine basically acts as a buffer between Russia and the European Union.
All right. Now, Khalid Saab, there have all been allegations by Ukraine of cyber attacks perpetrated by Russia earlier this month. I mean, the report came out on the 17th of this month. Then we've had, of course, Russia denying whatever the US is saying as far as the incursion into Ukraine is concerned.
Yes.
It has denied not once, not twice, but a lot of times. It says that these are the military drills that it is conducting with Belarus, and that is why there's an increase in the troops as far as the border is concerned. Now, Joe Biden also addressed the media some time back, and in which he talked about the Russian incursion into Ukraine. He said that my guess is he will move in. I said, quote unquote, he has to do something. But he also said at the same time there will be a smaller penalty for a minor incursion by Russia. Is US somehow somewhere prepared also to let Russia, to give Russia some kind of a leeway in case there is not a major incursion into Ukraine?
Yeah, first of all, let me talk about cyber attacks. It's very interesting that Ukraine has been subjected to the most cyber attacks since 2014, and almost every year they had 2 to 3 very big cyber attacks. In December 2015, the cyber attack was so powerful that almost half of the Ukraine, they lost their electricity. There was a power outrage in Ukraine due to a cyber attack. Then in June 2017, all the government and the business computer systems in Ukraine were hacked, and very recently they had a cyber attack. Now, coming over to the President Joe Biden's statement, I would say that America is overestimating and overreacting on this thing because of various reasons. Number one, Yes, on the Belarus side, the European Union is facing a lot of pressure from Belarus because almost 10,000, more than 10,000 immigrants are stranded on the Belarus border, and they want to enter Belarus. And very recently, European Union talked with the Iraqi government, and Iraq lifted their 4,000 immigrants from Belarus back to Iraq. And they are facing a lot of pressure from the Belarus side, and you know that situation in Belarus has not been very conducive in last 1.5 years. Again, there are, we have seen in Kazakhstan very recently whatever has happened.
Of course.
So the situation of this region is quite fluid, and America is basically, they're trying to take full advantage of this crisis situation and get more leverage.
When you talk of leverage, the US State Department, as per the reports, has cleared Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia to send US-made missiles and other weapons to Ukraine. 3 sources have confirmed this decision. Now, Russia has time and again told the US and the West that it should not put any kind of missile system inside the region. Do you feel this is also going to result in more of a tension between the US and Russia, a tension that is already present?
Yes, it will. It will result into more tension. The reason is this, that the Russians and Americans, they had a treaty. This treaty was signed in 1997. It is known as Founding Act Treaty. It was signed between between Russia and NATO. In that it was written that NATO will not come towards the post-Soviet era countries. So basically, Russia would may go to UN or may say to the world that NATO and US has defied this treaty of 1997, and this kind of if this kind of movement of missiles is done towards the Ukraine side. So yes, Russia is definitely going to make an issue out of it, and if Russia backs out of this 1997 treaty, then it will be a lot of problem for NATO also.
Or Khalid, finally, Joe Biden also, when he was speaking earlier to reporters, he said that a summit with Russia could be a possibility. They've already met twice last year. Do you feel in case they do meet up, some kind of a thaw could take over, as far as if the situation in Ukraine does not exacerbate, does not go beyond any control? Do you feel that some kind of a thaw in relations between the West and Russia could happen? And in case Russia does invade Ukraine, do you feel that the sanctions that have been told by Biden will be put into place by Russia will have any effect on it?
Yes, number one, Russia, I don't think they are going to invade Ukraine very soon. But yes, they are going to put more pressure on America so that they do not place any kind of missile or anything. The Russian-US relationship are already going through quite troubled waters, and they are mainly not dependent on Ukraine. There are many other issues which involve the US-Russia relationship. We have seen once even Joe Biden was vice president, he remained vice president for a very long time. Even at that time, his statements against Russia was quite strong. So I don't think that during the presidency tenure of Joe Biden, there can be any kind of relationship advancement towards Russia and US. There will not be. It will. They will keep on hanging in between. And yes, other countries like China will take advantage, and the smaller countries in the region, they will take advantage. Like you mentioned, Latvia and like Ukraine is taking advantage of all these things. So Ukraine would definitely want to become part of European
Lithuania,
Union. Estonia, they all will take advantage, and they will try to get maximum economic benefits out of the present situation.
Thank you very much, Khalid Taimur Akram Saab, Executive Director of the CGSS, to have talked to us about this latest situation that is emanating from Russia. And let's just hope that this doesn't escalate into a full-blown incursion into Ukraine, because this will have devastating repercussions on the region and on the already tense relationship between Russia and the United States. Thank you very much, sir, to have joined us.